Hey everybody! So there has been a lot of talk about homeschool lately, with the COVID-19 stuff still floating around in the air and all school districts are changing the way that they do things. A lot of people are deciding to homeschool. I've been homeschooling my kids for 6 years now, and I know how overwhelming it can be to get started. There's so many options, so many things to learn and to know and to figure out. I want to help show you how you can get started with homeschool in a way that doesn't feel quite as overwhelming. Let's get started. First thing, the most important thing that I think everybody needs to know when they consider going into homeschooling. Homeschool does not look like public school, and it's not supposed to. Public school includes a lot of very strict structure, and it has to be that way because there's a classroom full of children that have to maintain some sort of peace and balance and control, right? When you take those kids home, breaks can happen whenever they need to happen. If one way of learning doesn't work for that child, you can switch gears and do a different way of learning. Maybe that kid's having a really overwhelming day that day, and so rather than doing a lot of book work and a lot of writing, you watch some documentaries instead. Whatever it is, homeschool does not look like public school. That's a really difficult thing for a lot of people to figure out, especially people like me that I went through the public school system. And so when I started homeschooling my kids, all I knew was the public school system. And so at first I tried to make my children's experience at home feel a lot like my experience did in public school. And there's no reason for that. That causes massive amounts of stress on you as the teacher and on your children as the students, and there's no reason. The beauty of homeschooling is that you can teach your children in the way that they learn best. So keep that in mind as you begin this adventure. Next thing, you want to find a curriculum. There are so many options out there, you guys, so many options. My advice would be do not dump a bunch of money into a curriculum because there are so many free options. When we first started, I didn't realize how many free options there were. I began homeschooling my oldest by going to school supply stores and purchasing books like these. Now these were great. They worked out really well for the first little bit. He was only in second grade, so we had some pretty basic stuff to teach him. The problem was that very quickly he grew out of this type of workbook, and then I didn't know where to go from there because I'm not a trained teacher. The advantage of having an actual curriculum is that it's structured for you. There's stuff you can plug yourself into, and there are lessons already prepared for you, and it makes it so much easier to keep track of where they're at and make sure they're continuing to progress and not staying stagnant, doing similar things over and over longer than is necessary. I know of a few different curriculums that are really fantastic that I've heard great things about. One that I know is really good is The Good and the Beautiful. I've heard great things about that. I've never used it personally. Another option, you can go through the public school system and do what's called K-12. I've heard really great things about that too. In fact, I've got family that have gone through that program and really enjoyed it. The difference with that versus some of these other curriculums is that that is still part of the public school system. So you have teachers, which is helpful, but you also have deadlines. You also have strict regulations from the government. You have a box that your child is put into, and if they are not in that box, then they are either too slow or they're not learning fast enough or whatever it is. The government has come up with these levels, and the kids are supposed to be at these specific levels at certain times in their development, and if they're not, they are deemed behind or whatever it is. And I don't like having my kids stuck in a box. If they're learning something very quickly, I want them to be able to run with it. If there's something they're struggling with a little bit more, that doesn't mean they're not intelligent. That just means they need a little more help in that area. So I really like to not be in the public school system so that I don't have to adhere to those boxes that they provide. What I use is called All-in-One Homeschool or Easy Peasy Homeschool. I love it because you can structure it to your children. They can learn the subjects that you choose, and it's completely free. completely free. And every day is mapped out for you. There are links to games online. There are worksheets that you can print off. If you want to do it that way, you can get a big old notebook and you can print off a whole bunch of worksheets for all the different subjects that they're doing. You can also, through easy peasy, go to Amazon.com and for $5 a pop, which is way cheaper than the other workbooks I used to buy, you can buy all of the worksheets printed off for you in these convenient little books. Teaching a child to read, I'm not going to lie to you, can be difficult. But it's totally doable too. I really like using, when they're very young, I like using starfell.com and I like abcmouse.com. Now both of these, to use their full content, require an annual subscription, but it's pretty reasonably priced, and so I didn't really see an issue with subscribing to them. What I also recommend is read with your kids. Like, that's the biggest, most important thing. That's how they learn. You can find these books. Now I found this set through Usborne Books. You don't have to buy a full set like this, but I really like these because they are parent reader books. So what they have in them is a section for the parent to read and then a much smaller section for the kids to read so that they can learn how to read, sound out the words, and they can read right along with you. I like this set that I have because it's progressive. It starts really, really easy and it gets more and more difficult as you move through. That's been really helpful in teaching my third, Drake, to read. I also have used, for my second, Lily, when I taught her to read, I used the book Teaching Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. That worked really well for her. She really enjoyed it. I tried using that for Drake and he hated every second of it. It was like torture. Every kid is different, every learning style is different, and you don't have to teach each kid the same way like they do in public school. So if something's not working, switch it up. Next thing that I would advise for you is find a support system. Now that could be in the form of a co-op, which is different families that homeschool that come together to do some of that educating together. Those are great. We haven't found one that we super love or that we feel really good about, and so we're actually not members of any co-ops, but I've heard some fantastic stories and fantastic experiences. Figure out what works for your family and for your children. Facebook groups. That sounds kind of silly, but those were a huge help for me when I first started because there are so many questions and there are so many options. So joining some Facebook groups in my local area was really helpful because then I could ask questions and I could scroll through the feed, and a lot of times so many other people had the exact same questions that I did. So I was able to scroll through those feeds, see some of the old questions, and get a lot of my questions answered just by reading what other people had been discussing already. That was a huge, huge help for me. One way that we love to learn is by going on field trips. We love to go tour factories and go to the zoo and go to aquariums and go to all kinds of different places to learn how things are done. Now, right now with the virus, a lot of places are not allowing public to come in and tour their facilities. So another option is documentaries. There's so many documentaries about wildlife and all different kinds of science and history and how things are made. So many different documentaries available. Disney Plus has a lot that we really enjoy. Netflix has a lot that we really enjoy. So I find things that my children are interested in and we learn about that. My oldest is very, very into history. He loves especially big events like Pompeii, for example, or Titanic, like big events that massively affected large amounts of people. He's really interested in that, or different wars, things like that. So we watch a lot of documentaries about things like that for him. My second is so artistic. She loves to do different arts and crafts and come up with different ideas on things that she can make. So we watch a lot of how-to videos and a lot of fun crafting idea videos for her. My younger two, they both are most into wildlife documentaries right now. So we watch a ton of things about how nature works, insects and little critters in the forest and things like that. And they love it. They just soak that stuff up. And finally, this is probably the absolute most important thing that you can possibly do to educate your children. Read. Read to them. Read history books. Read science books, read how-to books, read adventure books, read mystery books, read exciting books, read fantasy books, read all kinds of books, because books will open up their imagination. Books open up the world to us. Books allow us to learn so many things that we wouldn't be able to learn in another way. And it's different from TV, because in TV, documentaries are great and things like that are fantastic, but it's all fed to you. It's all spoon-fed. When you're reading, it forces your mind to open up and to really picture those things and to process all of those words and make it into something more in your brain. Whereas on TV, it's already there. You don't have to do that mental work. So read, 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 and read some more. That's going to be the best thing for your children. Homeschooling is a lot of work. I'm not going to lie to you. And there are moments where I think, oh man, public school would be so much easier. And it probably would be. But I absolutely love the time that I get to spend with my children. I absolutely love that I get to be there with them during those aha moments where they figure something out, where it all clicks in their brain. I love that we get to go on family adventures that we wouldn't go on otherwise. Our PE classes are often riding bikes through the neighborhood, or going for a hike, or going to a trampoline park, or things of that nature. And I love that we get to experience life together as a family. Let me know in the comments below if you have any other questions. I'd be more than happy to answer them for you. Thank you guys so much for watching this today. Have a fantastic day, everybody. That Otter Mama, signing out.